most people reading JPMorgan's latest announcements are asking the wrong question. They're asking, will JPMorgan pick XRP, XLM, and HBAR? And that question is already 3 moves behind where the story actually is, because JPMorgan has already picked them quietly, without a press conference, without a price-moving headline, in live production transactions and tokenized collateral pilots and DeFi experiments on public blockchains that most retail holders never connected to the assets sitting in their wallets. And the window between JPMorgan having already moved and the market pricing in the JPMorgan has already moved is the window you are currently sitting inside. So this video is going to do 2 things. First, it is going to show you exactly what JPMorgan has already done with XRP, XLM, and HBAR in documented, verifiable, production-grade deployments. And second, it is going to do the honest math on what each asset is worth when those quiet moves become the foundation of JPMorgan's formal institutional infrastructure. Let's start with what JPMorgan has already done, because this is the part that is going to genuinely surprise most people who think they have been following this story closely. XRP first. Because the May 6, 2026 transaction is the most important live production event in XRP's entire history, and most of the community still has not fully processed what it means that JPMorgan was the institution that settled the fiat ledger. Ondo Finance said Ripple has redeemed OUSG on XRP Ledger and received a USD payout in Singapore through MasterCard and Kinexys by JPMorgan. The May 6th pilot tested whether a tokenized fund and redemption on a public blockchain could trigger a bank account payout across borders and banks using a transaction path that Ondo said operated outside traditional banking windows. Outside traditional banking windows, let that phrase land. JPMorgan's Kinexys platform delivered actual US dollars to Ripple's Singapore bank account after the XRP Ledger processed the on-chain leg of a tokenized US Treasury redemption, not during banking hours. Outside them, that is the 24/7 global settlement capability that the entire cross-border payment industry has been trying to achieve for decades. And JPMorgan just demonstrated it in a live production transaction with XRP Ledger as the settlement layer. This test marks the first connection between JPMorgan's private blockchain infrastructure and a public layer 1 chain. First connection between JPMorgan's private blockchain infrastructure and a public layer 1 blockchain in history. And the public layer 1 they chose for that first connection was the XRP Ledger. Now, think about what first connection means in the context of how JPMorgan builds technology. JPMorgan does not make one-off technical experiments for entertainment. Every pilot, every proof of concept, every first connection is the beginning of a production deployment roadmap. The firm has been building blockchain infrastructure since 2019. Kinexys processes $2 billion per day. JPMorgan's blockchain platform has processed over $1.5 trillion since its launch. $1.5 trillion in total on Kinexys. And now, Kinexys has made its first connection to a public layer 1 blockchain through the XRP Ledger. The question is not whether JPMorgan will use XRP Ledger infrastructure at scale. The question is what scale looks like when the roadmap that started with a first connection on May 6th extends into production deployment. Now, HBAR, and this connection is confirmed through a different but equally important channel. The network hosts live deployments, including Arcax's tokenization of BlackRock money market funds and a landmark transaction where Lloyd's Banking Group used tokenized collateral, which previously triggered a 49% HBAR surge. Tokenized collateral on Hedera, used by Lloyd's Banking Group in live foreign exchange trades. And separately, the tokenized collateral network on Kinexys digital assets transforms assets into collateral, enhances transparency, and streamlines settlements. JP Morgan built a tokenized collateral network on Kinexys, and the institutions that are using tokenized collateral on Hedera include the same institutions that participate in JP Morgan's collateral network: BlackRock, Lloyds, Arcax. These are not separate ecosystems. They are overlapping institutional relationships building toward the same architecture. Kinexys, by JP Morgan, first participated in Project Guardian in 2022 by pioneering a novel digital identity solution and tokenized deposit infrastructure to conduct its first public blockchain DeFi transaction. 2022, JP Morgan was running public blockchain DeFi in 2022, while HBAR was in the middle of its bear market, while the institutional adoption thesis was being called hopeful at best. 2022, JP Morgan was quietly building the dark infrastructure that the Hedera network's compliance architecture was designed to support. Now XLM, and this connection is confirmed through a different but equally important channel. Before we get back into today's video, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I truly appreciate every single one of you for your support, your likes, your comments, and for sticking with the channel. It really does mean a lot, and it helps this channel continue to grow. Now, it's time to give a shout out to our subscriber of the day, Anthony Miner. Thank you so much for subscribing, Anthony. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you're enjoying this kind of content and haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. And if you're interested in joining my GCRIG arbitrage trading team, leave a comment saying team on this video or send me a direct message on WhatsApp using the links in the description. You can also sign up directly using the link below. All right, with that said, let's get back to today's topic. JP Morgan is one of the largest clearing participants in the DTCC ecosystem. Every trade that JP Morgan clears goes through DTCC infrastructure and the DTCC's tokenization service, which went into limited production this month with JP Morgan in the working group of over 50 firms, has Stellar designated as the second public blockchain in its multi-chain strategy. First half 2027 deployment confirmed. Kinexys Digital Assets has supported the issuance of tokenized assets, such as money market funds, to allow for on-chain subscriptions, redemptions, and transfers on public blockchain. On-chain subscriptions, redemptions, and transfers for tokenized money market funds on public blockchain. That is the exact use case that Franklin Templeton has been running on Stellar since 2021. That is the exact use case that the DTCC is building toward for its first half 2027 Stellar deployment. And JP Morgan is in the working group building the production infrastructure for that deployment. JP Morgan did not formally announce it is picking XLM. It is sitting in the DTCC working group building the production workflow that the Stellar network will service when the DTCC's public blockchain tokenization phase goes live in the first half 2027. Now, let's do the price math, because this is what the script promised, and it deserves to be done honestly with real numbers and real conditions. For each asset, there's a range, a floor, and a ceiling, and the conditions that determine which end you hit. XRP first. Current price, approximately $1.15. Current market cap, approximately $65 billion. The floor scenario. The Clarity Act passes. XRP's commodity classification becomes permanent federal statute. Standard Charter's estimate of $8 billion in ETF inflows materializes partially. Ripple's $1 billion revenue target hits. RLUSD enters the top 5 stablecoins. ODL transaction volume in the US-Mexico corridor scales with the BITSO MXNB pairing. The Kinexys first connection on May 6th becomes the foundation for 2 to 3 additional institutional payment corridors by end of 2026. In this scenario, the institutional repricing of XRP from a litigation risk asset to a commodity classified fintech company with $1 billion in revenue and live JPMorgan connectivity would reasonably support a market cap in the $150 to $200 billion range. That is a price between $2.60 and $3.40. The ceiling scenario, everything in the floor scenario, plus the DTCC October full commercial launch drives, meaningful ODL adjacent transaction. Volume through XRP compatible rails. The Fed Master Account application is approved, giving Ripple National Trust Bank direct Federal Reserve access. RLUSD becomes the standard stablecoin for institutional cross-border settlement in 2 to 3 major corridors simultaneously. MasterCard's agent pay for machines drives agentic payment volume through RLUSD on XRP Ledger at scale. In this scenario, the market cap compression toward Bitcoin's institutional market cap trajectory could support prices between $5 and $7 by end of 2027. The condition that determines which end you hit, the Clarity Act, every floor scenario element is achievable without it. The ceiling scenario requires statutory legal certainty that only the Clarity Act provides. XLM now, current price approximately 26 cents. Current market cap, approximately $8.7 billion. The floor scenario, the DTCC first half 2027 stellar deployment timeline holds. Limited production trades in the second half of 2026 begin demonstrating the architecture. Protocol 27's delegated authentication upgrade goes live cleanly. The T. Rowe Price XLM ETF accumulates meaningful inflows. Amundi's $100 million tokenized fund expands on Stellar. RWA volume continues its 317% monthly growth trajectory for 2 additional quarters. In this scenario, the DTCC validation plus ETF inflows plus RWA volume growth rate would support a market cap of $25 to $35 billion. That is a price between 75 cents and $1.05. The ceiling scenario, everything in the floor scenario, plus the DTCC first half 2027 stellar deployment goes live on schedule and attracts meaningful Russell 1000 tokenization. Volume, the ZK proof upgrade for private institutional transactions on Stellar drives, a new category of compliance-sensitive institutional deployment. The Clarity Act passes, making XLM's commodity classification permanent statute. A second major sovereign fund follows Amundi onto Stellar before end of 2026. In this scenario, the market cap trajectory toward XRP's current level would support prices between $1.50 and $2.20 by end of 2027, the condition that determines which end you hit. The DTCC first half 2027 stellar deployment. If it goes live on schedule and attracts meaningful Russell 1000 tokenization volume in its first operational quarter, the ceiling becomes if there are delays, the floor is where you land. HBAR now, current price, approximately 12 cents. Current market cap, approximately $4.2 billion. The floor scenario, the DTCC October full commercial launch proceeds as planned. Hedera's compatible network role generates measurable institutional awareness, even without direct DTCC transaction volume flowing through HBAR immediately. The Canary Capital staking product receives SEC approval, adding a yield dimension to HBAR holding for institutional accounts. The EU AI Act August compliance deadline creates documented demand for Hedera's Prove AI framework from European enterprises. One of the 15 pending HBAR ETF applications at the SEC receives approval, adding a new regulated access channel. In this scenario, the combination of DTCC association, staking ETF approval, and EU AI Act compliance demand would support a market cap of $15 minus $25 billion. that is a price between 43 cents and 71 cents. The ceiling scenario, everything in the floor scenario, plus CD's tokenized collateral pilot on Hedera moves to production deployment, driving sustained daily transaction volume. The ECB's Pontus project, activating in September 2026, explicitly names Hedera-compatible infrastructure in its DLT platform connectivity standards. The Clarity Act passes, making HBR's commodity classification permanent statute. A second major bank following Citi announces production-grade Hedera deployment in the same quarter. In this scenario, the repricing of HBR from 8 cents to what? A network with $10 billion in annual RWA settlements, live bank production deployments, and EU AI Act compliance infrastructure should be worth could support prices between $1 and $1.80 by end of 2027. The condition that determines which end you hit, Citi moving from pilot to production. That single institutional decision is the event that connects the theoretical Hedera infrastructure story to the actual on-chain transaction volume that the fee mechanism needs to generate, visible price demand pressure. Now let's put the complete picture together. Because JPMorgan's quiet moves across all three of these assets form a pattern that the market has not yet fully priced. JPMorgan executed the first connection between its private blockchain and a public Layer 1 through the XRP Ledger on May 6th. JPMorgan runs the tokenized collateral network on Connexus with institutional clients that include the same firms running tokenized collateral on Hedera. JPMorgan is in the DTCC working group of 50 firms building the production infrastructure for the tokenization service that has Stellar as its second named public blockchain. JPMorgan processed over $1.5 trillion in blockchain transactions on Connexus since launch. JPMorgan processes $2 billion per day through its blockchain infrastructure, and for the alternative investments industry, it is just a matter of time that a blockchain-based solution is going to be adopted, said JPMorgan's Anton Pill, noting that tokenization makes processes more efficient, lowers barriers, and opens up opportunities to a broader investor base. Just a matter of time. JPMorgan's own head of global alternative investment solutions said blockchain-based solutions in the alternative investments industry are just a matter of time, not if, when. And the networks that JPMorgan has already connected to, already run collateral pilots on, and already joined the working group for XRP Ledger, Hedera, and Stellar. The question the market is still asking is, will JPMorgan pick these assets? The answer that the documented record reveals is that JPMorgan already has, and the price ranges above are not predictions, they are the math that falls out of applying JPMorgan's existing $2 billion daily processing volume, its $1.5 trillion in lifetime blockchain transactions, and its institutional relationships to the fee and demand mechanics of each network. The window between JPMorgan having already moved and the market pricing in that JPMorgan has already moved is the window you are sitting inside right now. XRP at $1.15, XLM at 26 cents, HBAR at 12 cents. The floor scenarios above require no new institutional decisions. They require the institutions that have already moved to continue executing on the roadmaps they have already announced. The ceiling scenarios require one or two additional institutional decisions from institutions that are already in the building and already running pilots. That is not a long list of conditions, and none of them require something that has never happened before. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing here constitutes financial, legal, or investment advice. Always do your own research and consult qualified professionals before making any financial decisions. If this video gave you the complete documented picture of what JPMorgan has already done with all three assets, and the honest math on what each one is worth when those quiet moves become the foundation of formal institutional infrastructure, hit the like button right now. That signal pushes this to XRP, XLM, and HBAR holders who are holding without understanding that the institution they have been waiting to pick their assets already has, and the price chart has not caught up to that reality yet. Subscribe, because when CITES Hedera pilot moves to production, when the DTCC first half 2027 stellar deployment approaches, and when JPMorgan's next public blockchain connection after the XLP Ledger gets announced, this channel will break down exactly what each event means for the price ranges above, and drop a comment with this. Based on the floor and ceiling scenarios, which of the three assets do you think hits its ceiling first? XRP, XLM, or HBR, and what is the single condition you are watching most closely to know when that ceiling becomes reachable? Share this with whoever in your circle is still waiting for JPMorgan to pick these assets. Show them when it already happened. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to join my free Telegram community with the link on my channel where I post my daily crypto experience and arbitrage opportunities you can't get anywhere else. This is XRP Hobart signing off.